gave me. In this session, I mostly want to go through the sections of Rights of Person with Disability Act. More than seeing this act on the point of exam for marks, I think this will be a session which would enlighten people about the various rights a person with disability has. Because most of them are unaware, like there's a community which is given certain rights. So I want to go through all these and make the session enlightening and create awareness about the disability rights. And I would first start about the brief history of the disability legislations in India. Prior to our constitution, we know that there were certain acts like the Indian Penal Code, Indian Contract Act, and many other acts, but there wasn't any specific legislation that protected the rights of disabled people. Indian Penal Code, we have general defenses saying that nothing is an offense which is committed by a person of unsound mind. Only piecemeal legislation we had, and there was Indian Lunacy Act. So we didn't have a comprehensive legislation or a code that protects the rights of persons with disability. So then we look into our constitution. Did we have these provisions protecting the rights of a person with disability in our constitution? No, we don't have such special privileges or rights which is specifically given for disabled people under the constitution. When we look at Article 14, it applies generally. Article 15 talks about the various discriminations, equality in giving opportunity, where people should not be discriminated on the grounds of gender, caste, race, creed, place of birth. But unfortunately, the Constituent Assembly debate did not think about a population which has certain disability. So the term disability wasn't included. But the courts have been predominantly interpreting to include disability, the term disability under Article 15. But the Parliament has to take forward, and by a constituent amendment, the term disability must be included under Article 15. Then the other provisions of the Constitution, we look Article 21 applies to everyone. Only two places in the Constitution talks about disabled people. One in the schedule, one in Article 41, which is a directive principles of state policy, where the state should take specific measures in giving assistance, public assistance to the persons who undergo disablement. There is no other mention in the Constitution with regard to the rights of a differently able person. The Constitution protects the rights of a minority. The Constitution protects the rights of the scheduled caste, the rights of the scheduled tribe. We have a National Commission for the scheduled caste. We have a National Commission for the scheduled tribe, but we don't have a constitutional body or constitutional functionary that is dedicated towards the entire population of disabled people. Then after the Constitution, Constitution was framed in 1950. But the first legislation that came out after the Constitution, particularly consolidating all the rights of a person with disability, is only in 1995. After there was so much of agitation in the international arena, where disabled people came forward in creating a disability movement, only then India thought of enacting a special law for the person with disability. And that law came out in 1995, which is the Person with Disability Equal Opportunities Act. We had legislation like Mental Health Act, National Trust Act for the cerebral palsy. We had everything piecemeal. We didn't have a consolidated act. And one such act was 1995 Act. Then the major change came in 2016. That is the Rights of Person with Disability Act. This Rights of Person with Disability Act came as an obligation of India to fulfill the commitment given to the Convention on Rights of Persons with Disability. It took nearly 16 years after the convention came into force for India to enact legislation in 2016. We have, though we have a consolidated act now protecting the rights and giving certain entitlements for the differently able people, but still there are lacunas and loopholes, but there has been a gradual shift in protecting the rights of disabled people. On a general outlook, what are the changes that has been happening? First, the disability movement in 1970s, where women started claiming their rights, adult suffrage, then the women's movement came, then the disability movement came. It was a very big agitation in US called the San Francisco sit-in, where the president was made to enact a legislation for the disabled people. All these agitations made the international community to come forward to consolidate the rights needed for protecting a community of people. Then 1981 was declared as an international year for the disability. Then a declaration of rights of mentally retarded people was declared. Then came the International Decade for Disabled People. Then subsequently, the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disability Act in 2006. And every year, I don't know if everyone is aware, December 3 is celebrated as International Day for the Disabled People. What are the major changes that has taken place is that instead of the medical model of disability, now it has moved to the social model of disability, where disability was attributed only to the person. Now the society, the barrier in the society is what is treated to cause the disability of the people. That shift has taken place. The attitude towards the differently able people has slowly now are being changed, because people are getting aware, like there's a community like this and we have to protect their rights, and disability should be treated as a diversity and not anything that is so different, or anything that is a medical problem or an impairment. That change has been gradually occurring. And when we look into the legislation of rights of person with disability, as I said, the preamble itself clearly says that the Rights of Person with Disability Act was enacted for protecting the rights, for fulfilling the obligations given under the Convention on the Rights of Person with Disability Act. The main principles on which this act is equality, dignity of the differently able people, protecting the autonomous character of a person, and equal opportunity. All these are the basic rights which the convention protects. The same terminologies are used in the Rights of Persons with Disability Act also. Nearly 18 chapters we have in this act, and 1 or 2 sections we have in this act. Other than this, when we move on to the provisions of the act, section 2 defines all the important definitions. First, the act divides a person of disability into 3 different categories. First is a person with disability, then is a person with benchmark disability, then is a person with a disability who needs high support. Person with disability, the act says that anyone who is not able to enjoy all the rights which is given to a normal person because of his impairment and due to the barrier in the society are termed to be person with disability. Person with benchmark disabilities are those which are certified by the certifying authority given in the act as 40% and above. They are treated to be benchmark disabled people. Next is a person who needs high support. A person with a benchmark disability who feels that he needs a support to live his life independently, then he is termed to be a person with a benchmark disability. Then the important definition under the definition clause is barrier. What does the term barrier include? It is a very wide definition. It includes all kinds of barrier which comes in the way of a disabled people, be it a political barrier, cultural barrier, economic barrier, religious barrier, physical, institutional, infrastructural, anything, any barrier which is not allowing a differently able person to enjoy his rights at equal parlance with a non-disabled person, then that is considered to be a barrier. Then the other important term is reasonable accommodation. All adjustments which is required for a person, be it institutional, religious, as usual, which has to be made for the differently able person to enjoy his rights equally with others, then that reasonable accommodation must be made. Then it defines the appropriate government as a state government and the central government. Then it defines what is a public facility, what is a private enterprise, what is a public establishment. All these terms are defined under the uh, Act. What are the types of disability that is recognized under this Act? Initially, under the 1995 Act, only 7 types of disability was recognized. Now, this 2016 Act recognized around 21 different types of disability. Before this, I would like to talk about the census of disabled people. Are they really numbered? Are these people, are the data available for these people for the schemes to really reach them? No. Actually, the estimation in 2011 census was only 2.21% of the population has some kind of disability. But the actual estimation given by the WHO and the World Bank is around 15% of the Indian population is suffering with some kind of disability. And most of these disabled people are from the rural background. So, this parity number, the problem with number comes out because disabled people, differently able people are treated, are stigmatized. If you're going to say that you're going to have a disability, then you'll be stigmatized in the society. So many of them shy out. They don't come out telling that I have a disability. And the other problem is the enumeration officer who comes out to take the census is not sensitized with regard to the disability rights. So the problem, I hope the problem will be solved in this 2021 census, where most of this disability, 21 different types of disability will be covered. And when we look into what are the disabilities which are newly added, these include the blind, the low vision, dwarfism, Parkinson's disease, acid attack, mentally retarded, intellectually disabled, persons having multiple sclerosis, cerebral palsy, and many other different types of disability, even invisible disability. Disability can be both visible as well as invisible. All blood-related disability are called invisible disability, where thalassemia, sickle cell anemia, hemophilia, all these types are also now considered under the ambit of Rights of Persons with Disability Act, so that they could also benefit from this act. Then from section 3 onwards, this act gives some rights and entitlements. What are the rights and entitlements which is given on a general basis? Persons with a benchmark disability and persons having high support need both have special provisions, but on a general term, all the 3 different kinds of people, person with disability, person with benchmark disability, and person who are in need of high support, all have a common rights and entitlements under this act. These include like equality. No person should be discriminated on the grounds of disability. And but there is a proviso saying that if the legitimate purpose is going to be solved, then the person can be discriminated. This is again against the universal principle given under the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disability Act. So first is the equality of opportunity. Then it guarantees cultural rights. All persons should be entitled to cultural rights like others. Then it protects the educational rights. Then it protects this all special in each and every field. Each right is given protecting the disabled people, including sports, recreational activities. No person should be institutionalized, preventing cruelty and torture to the disabled people. No person should use disabled people for research without the permission of the concerned authorities. All these are some of the rights and entitlements which is given to differently abled people. When it comes to education, the appropriate government has to establish educational institution. All these educational institutions should be inclusive. This we still have a problem with regard to education. Though we say that inclusive education is given, we don't have sufficient special teachers. Uh, as per the data of Tamil Nadu alone, we have 67% vacancy with regard to special teachers who are who have been equipped themselves in teaching differently able people. All the schools must be accessible. Many schools don't, all the private schools don't have accessibility facility. They don't have ramps, they don't have rail facilities. If a differently able person is going to study in a special or a normal school, all the classes must be on the ground floor. If he is not able to access the top floors, all these special reasonable accommodations must be made. Or everything is given in the act, but nothing happens in reality. With regard to education, all the government provides scholarships, both preschool, during the post matriculation exams, even after the undergraduation, post graduation level. We have all types of scholarships. There is a national overseas scholarship for persons with disability who want to go outside India and study. All these schemes are there, but we aren't made aware of. Many of the differently able are not made aware, and many differently able do not pursue their higher studies because either the institution is not accessible, or the person is from a poor background who does not know that such a scheme exists. So with regard to education, in higher education, for persons with benchmark disability, there is 5% reservation. I'll come back with regard to what are the special schemes which is given to a benchmark disability. Well, then skill development and vocational training must be given. The appropriate government must establish vocational training institutions which gives vocational training for all the persons with disability, so that they can self-employ themselves to have some kind of employment, because poverty and disability come hand in hand. Whoever are poor are prone to become more disabled. Then employment. The appropriate government should make all reasonable provisions to make all the public uh, establishments which provide employment for persons with disability accessible, both structurally and when it comes internally, all the promotions. A person must not be judged based on his disability for promotions. There are many cases that comes to the court where disabled on the criteria of disability, they won't be allowed promotion. Many differently able people go for voluntary retirement because they are being harassed, they are being discriminated on the workplace. A person should not be discriminated or demoted because of his disability. And with regard to posting and transfer, proper provisions must be made. All these are reasonable accommodations should be made in the place of employment. Uh, then what are the social security benefits, which and healthcare and rehabilitation benefits? Social security, there are many maintenance schemes that provides monetary, even in terms of monetary and insurance schemes. uh, the appropriate government should protect the differently able people when they are unemployed. I don't know if these schemes are even in reality. There is an unemployment scheme, there is a comprehensive insurance scheme. All these different kinds of schemes are there. When a government is going to make a policy or a scheme for a normal person, then the act says that for a differently able person, it should be 25% and above. Now there is a case pending in the Madras High Court asking the government to allocate funds from the CM Relief Fund, particularly for a differently able based on this act. With regard to education, also every time some cases crops up. When it comes to examination, the materials should be given beforehand. For a blind, it should be given in braille, and tactical design should be given. For an hearing impaired, sign language lessons should be given. When it comes to exam, extra time should be given. When all these facilities are not given. Last year, we had a case before the Madras High Court with regard to the teacher training board where the scribes were not properly trained. The scribes must meet the candidate prior, but that wasn't allowed. The computers which has to read out the questions were not properly maintained. All these problems occur on a daily basis. With regard to social security, the reality is that uh, there are maintenance scheme which is given to person with disability. Around 1,000 rupees is given to a normal person with a benchmark disability, and a person who needs high support is given 1,500. All these are now being digitalized. That again creates a problem for a differently able person. He is not given banking facility. Though the act protects his right, but in reality, it is not realized. When it comes to what are the special provisions which is given for a person with a benchmark disability, though all the above rights and entitlements is given to all persons with disability, there are special privileges which is given to a person with a benchmark disability. Benchmark disability is that a person must be certified 40% and above, then only he will be considered as a benchmark differently able person. The act also tells who the certifying authority, what are the methods of certifying a person with a benchmark disability. First, with regard to education, 5% reservation is given with regard to higher education. Then when it comes to employment, uh, he should be again, the expert committee must be formed to first identify the post where all a differently able can be placed. Once the post is identified, then a 4% reservation must be given to a person with a benchmark disability. If the vacancy is not filled in a particular year, then it must be carried forwarded to the next year, uh, after which only it can be filled by a general candidate. He is given priority in allotment of agriculture. 5% reservation is given in allotment of agricultural land, in allotment of land given for housing or commercial purposes. All these are some of the provisions which is, or some of the special rights which is given for a person with a benchmark disability. What is given for a person with a disability who needs a high support? Once a person with a benchmark disability feels that he needs some kind of support to live individually, then he can approach the authorities concerned, then say that he requires some kind of support. Then the authority can inspect and see if that support is needed. Then the government will come forward to provide such support. Such is the special privilege given to a person with benchmark disability who is in need of a high support. What are the duties and responsibilities of the state government or the appropriate government under the act? They are supposed to protect the entire implementation of this act. Any person, they are supposed to conduct the census. They are supposed to frame a national policy for a differently able. But only in India, only in 2006, a national policy for a differently able person was formed. But after which, no such national policy was formed. Hope in the coming year, similar to national education policy, a national policy for differently able will be formed. Or the appropriate government must make sure that all the public buildings or the government establishments are made accessible. The accessibility must be given in terms of transportation, accessibility in terms of information and communication. All the public records, all these must be in an accessible format. When all these provisions are there, still, when you go through the government websites, still it is not digitally accessible. These are some social audit must be conducted. Accessibility audit must be conducted every 2 years once. But these are not regularly conducted as of now. What are the statutory authorities who are supposed to implement this act? Who are appointed under this act? First is the chief commissioner for differently abled under the Department of Social Welfare. In the central government, a person is appointed. In each state government, commissioner for disability, state commissionerate for disability is appointed, and in each district differently abled officer is appointed. These persons in their jurisdiction are supposed to take care of all the differently able people, distribute all the welfare measures, see to if there are any grievances, see to if the act is properly implemented, take cognizance of offense that are taking place in their jurisdiction. The act specifies what are the qualifications needed for appointing a person as a commissioner for disability, their salary, the tenure, how the vacancy can be filled. In a general statute, what all will be there is given also in the Rights of Persons with Disability Act. Unfortunately, since they are not constitutional bodies, their salaries are fixed by the appropriate government, central and the state government respectively, and it can be altered according to their whims and fancies. The other is the committees. The central committee will be formed to revise the act if the act needs certain revision. But there should also be an advisory committee in the state, but such committee is not formed in many of the states. And many of the states in India does not have a state commissioner for disability. The act says that the central government should have a special fund for differently abled. It should be a central fund as well as a state fund. The Tamil Nadu government has allotted a state fund of rupees 10 crore for differently able people. And most of the states, I have filed around 500 RTIs to know if there are states which have constituted this fund. Most of these states have given replies that no such funds has been constituted under the act. And the act says, creates some new courts. Like we have a courts for juveniles. There is also a court for differently able, or the sessions court in each district will be designated as a special court for differently able people, and special public prosecutors will be appointed. The act also specifies certain offenses which are punishable. Whoever causes cruelty or discrimination, or who hurts a differently able people by words, orally, they can be prosecuted under the act. Offenses committed by a company, all the offenses are punishable under the act for a period of 6 months to 5 years and a fine from 50,000 to 5 lakhs. Tamil Nadu have by notification designated the special courts, and there is a public interest litigation pending in the Supreme Court with regard to human rights, establishing special courts with regard to National Human Rights Commission. But I don't know if there is a case pending with regard to special courts with regard to disability, because many of the states did not designate any special courts. And the other provisions are with regard to accounts and audit. I want to discuss certain important cases because the act as a whole, they do not apply. It's only on a case-to-case basis that the rights of persons differently abled is protected. Many public interest litigation only plays an important role. There are many differently abled activists also who play an important role in protecting their rights. One is Javed Abidi. By various bills, he has come forward in making many places in India accessible. One is the airport. Earlier in 1990s, the airports were not accessible. Only by way of a public interest litigation, the airports were made accessible with special wheelchair facilities and all. Next is the National Commission, National Federation for the Blind. They have filed a case where the 3% reservation was not given for visually impaired in UPSC exams. That case was fought. And the act also protects the reproductive rights of a differently abled women, where it says that at par with other women, their rights also must be protected. That case was Disability Rights Group versus Suchita Srivastav versus State of Chandigarh. In that particular case, a mentally retarded girl was raped, and she became pregnant. When their parents tried to terminate her pregnancy, they were taken to the court. When the court asked the mentally retarded girl if she wants to keep the baby to herself, she replied that she wants to have the baby to herself. So the court did not permit the termination of pregnancy and came forward in protecting the rights of the mentally ill girl. In many such cases, there are many guidelines. Guidelines are given by the courts for scribes, how a scribe must be appointed, how they should write their exams, how, in case if the exams are going to be conducted online, how it should be conducted. There is a GO called 151 GO, where if a differently able person is going to be employed in any government establishment, if he's going to complete 2 years of work, then after which he should be treated as a permanent employment. But that GO is also not implemented. And actually, there should be a grievance redressal officer in each establishment, but such appointments are not made. If such appointments are made, many court litigations would be reduced. There should be equal opportunity policy in every state. Pondicherry has now announced an equal opportunity policy. Tamil Nadu is yet to announce. Like this, there are many rights, because each and every right comes to the court to get realized. Though there are specific rights, the act is so grand in look, giving many different rights, but in reality, nothing takes place. Even for an accessible beach, a bill was filed to make the Marina Beach accessible, where now all these rights gets realized only through courts, though there is a comprehensive legislation. And the only thing I would like to say is, the first, there must be an attitudinal change that must be brought in the society, after which all the rights will slowly get realized.
Karpagam?
Yes, ma'am. I've completed. If they have any questions, they can ask me.
Okay. I'll just open the forum. Dear friends, Karpagam has finished the session. Anyone who has any question regarding a presentation or the act as such, kindly raise your hands or post a question on the chat box, whichever is convenient for you.
No, I request them to ask the question, because it's very difficult for me to read from chat box.
No, I'll be reading for you from the chat box if there is any.
Yes.
Okay, no issues. Yeah. I have, there is one person who has not, name is not found. I'll read out, Karpagam, what he has done. I have few questions to you. One, yes. Article 5 of the UNCRPD provides for equality and non-discrimination of PWDs.
Yes.
But in the reality, PWDs face less favorable treatment at the workplace, and co-workers view them as undue burden on them.
Yes.
Sometimes they are even harassed and abused physically or sexually. Do you feel that there is a need for a special act like that of a POSH Act designed to prevent sexual harassment at workplace in order to protect PWDs?
Actually, this act, the Rights of Persons with Disability Act itself, gives punishable offenses. The reality is that no one comes forward to give a complaint. As I said, when I filed an RTI to know if there are any complaints under Section 92 of the Act, I couldn't find even 10 complaints around the entire country. No one came forward to give any complaint, because they think that if they're going to give, they're going to complain, then that may cause problems to their employment. The question is that if they are going to need a special act like that of Sexual Harassment Act, I feel like multiplicity of legislation is not going to serve the purpose. Even under the Sexual Harassment Act, a differently abled woman can go file a case. Multiplicity is only going to cause problem, because already there are many procedural snags, already there are many procedural difficulties. uh, the differently able is going to face more difficulty if they're going to have any special act. If in case a special act is going to be formed, then the procedure under that act should be made very easy for them to immediately get a relief. Else that act is not going to serve a purpose.
Okay, Ma, he has posed one more question.
Yes, sure.
You spoke about reservation of PWDs, which is a non-compartmentalized category that cuts across all vertical sections of reservation. As we know, there are as many as 21 disabilities scheduled in the Act. The percentage of reservation among such PWDs isn't bifurcated further. Their backlog of vacancies in seats posts reserved for the PWDs isn't carried forward like that of those reserved for the SC, STs. Isn't it just an eyewash?
Yes, absolutely. Actually, in 2013, the post identified were more. In 2018, again, they identified certain posts. The process again took place. When compared to 2013 and 2018, the number of posts actually diminished. Certain posts weren't made available for the differently abled. The vacancy or the filling up of reservation in every sector or every department, every establishment is just an eyewash. Nothing gets carried forwarded, nothing gets properly implemented. In a particular case where I was personally involved also, they did not provide proper reservation. Because the procedure in which they are providing the reservation is very complex. So every time a differently able person has to run to the court, file a writ, get his right realized. So it is just an eyewash, as the person rightly pointed out.
Okay. The next one. What is your opinion on Justice Surendra Kumar judgment that a person with at least 70% eyesight can only become a judge?
Actually, I'm going to file a case again in the Supreme Court where blind should be allowed to give an attempt to a judiciary exam. There are judges around the world who sit in various courts who are completely blind, who cannot see, who give judgment. There is a justice in US named Henry Friend. He has a vision problem, and there is a South African judge who gives judgments though he is blind, where the lady, the symbol of justice herself is blindfolded. A person with blind eyes can definitely render justice. Not because I have low vision, I'm telling. Justice requires perception, not only from the eyes. When you're going to lose your eyesight, you'll have the other senses sharpened. So eyesight is not the only criteria for a person to be rejected.
Okay, ma. Can I go for the next question?
Yes, sure, ma.
You spoke about, this is from, I think, Sumati. You spoke about invisible disability. Can you elaborate the topic about invisible disability?
Okay. Visible disabilities are those which are visible to the society. For example, a person with a wheelchair, you can see that that person has some kind of disability that is visible generally. Whereas in case of invisible disability, the person looks normal. You're not going to say that that person is going to have some disability. Example, in case of thalassemia, sickle cell anemia, or hemophile, though there may be certain deformities, they're not obvious to the society. These are blood-related disability. They suffer on a daily basis. So these disabilities which are not visible to the society are called invisible disabilities. The Act has recognized also certain invisible disabilities.
Thank you, ma. The next one. if a 498A and other matrimonial cases have been filed by wife against his blind husband, what advantage or relaxation he can get under this act?
No, he's not going to get any kind of relaxation.
Yes. Okay. I'll see if there is any hand raise. I think most of the questions on the chat box has been answered by you, Ma. And there was a lot of appreciation about your session also being posted. And we have one person who's raising hand is Mr. Anand Shivakumar. Let your question be very crisp, my dear brother. I'll open. Please unmute yourself.
Very good evening, sister. Am I audible?
Yes, yes, sir.
Very good evening.
You're audible and visible.
Thank you so much. Very well explained about the difficulties faced by this particular group. And especially the last part of not getting into judicial services, what I personally feel is that it is not right. It has to be, you have to be given the equal opportunity like others, no? Because how come so long, as it's been now 65 years, why there is no amendment or legislation has happened so far regarding
the problem
this?
Is the first thing is that all judges who are sitting are not differently abled. So they're not going to understand the problem. And all decision-making authorities, be it in the state government or be it in any expert panels, be it in the parliament, be it the prime minister or president, no one is differently able. There is something called nothing about us without us. But everything here happens without us.
I understand, sister. Sister, I would like to ask only one small question. As
yes,
like
sir.
my sister Raji said, only simple question. Any major difference between this Mental Health Act of 2017 versus this particular Disability Act of 2016? Why this particular act came on 2017? Is there any visible difference?
To genuinely answer your question, I didn't go through the act, sir.
Okay.
Maybe you can provide me your mail ID. I'll go through the act. I'll definitely clarify your doubts.
Because within 1 year, why this act has come? That's what my question was.
Actually, now presently, I've filed a bill saying that the term Divyang and the term mentally retarded should be completely removed, because the Convention on Rights of Persons with Disability first says that these terms are derogatory. I will go through the act. Yes, I will go through the act and I will comment on your questions, sir.
Thank you very much, sister. I'll send my email ID to Aziz. She knows my email ID.
Sure.
She will forward to you.
Sure.
Thank you very much for your valuable time.
Thank you.
Wishing the very best in your future endeavors.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Adi sister.
Thank you. Okay. There is one more question. I think the very language of the act seems to be filthy at various places, because it points out PWDs as blind, deaf, etc. instead of being euphemistic. The word Divyang is furthermore denigrating. What is your opinion? That's what you have told. That's the question has been posted by him.
Yes.
Yes, Karpagam. It's
one more, ma'am. As the last question pointed out, the very language differently abled terms that has to be used should be very specific, because when you're going to use the term Dalit and Harijan, you can see the difference. How the difference is going to cause the sentimental hurt. The first change is going to come in the nomenclature. When you're going to respect the person and define him properly, the first change happens there. It is not deaf and dumb. It is a person who's hard of hearing or who is having a hearing impairment. You're not going to tell that person to be a deaf and dumb. It's not mentally retarded. It is intellectually disabled. It is not disabled person. It should be a person with disability. First, the person must be noted and not the disability. I just